Now I'm on. Ooh, wow. Okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Summer of Hope Outreach Education Series, week 4 or 5. This has been a delight to be with you all so far, and we have a number of sessions still to come, but it is a great thrill to be able to welcome today a dear friend of mine, as well as a leader in the Diocese of Atlanta, Canon Julie Groce, who is a member of the bishop's staff. I believe your official title is Canon for Special Projects. She is also executive director of Appleton Episcopal Ministries, and it's in that auspice that she is here to speak with us today. As I mentioned in the announcements, Appleton Episcopal Ministries is one of the oldest ministries of the Diocese of Atlanta. Many people are not aware that each year we take up an offering for this ministry. Parishes throughout the diocese take up an offering, especially for Appleton, and it is often done at Thanksgiving or sometime in the fall. So welcome, Julie. Thank you for being here, and just can't wait to hear all that you have to share about this incredibly impactful program, which I'm guessing, anybody here familiar with Appleton or know about it? So we have a lot to learn today, and I'm going to go over and just try to politely contain the sound over there. But thank you.
No, thank you, Julia. Julia is one of my favorite people. Julia was in Macon at one time at Christ Church for a while, and we became great friends. And so anytime she calls me and asks me to do something, my answer is always going to be yes. So I'm very happy to be with all of you here today. Thanks for coming. Appleton is, I think, technically the oldest community ministry now in the Diocese of Atlanta. We predate the Diocese of Atlanta by many decades. We were founded in 1870 when we were part of the Diocese of Georgia. And we were founded by the second Bishop of Georgia, Bishop Beckwith. And Appleton was established in Macon as an orphanage for the daughters of Confederate soldiers, which was quite, at the time, it was considered quite appropriate. The orphanage filled up very quickly, and in fact, they realized almost instantaneously that they could not just serve the orphan daughters of Confederate soldiers, that there were so many families who were devastated by the Civil War in the South and in Georgia specifically, that they needed to take girls from lots of families. And so the building was built, and it was opened, and it was supported for many years, and the Bishop Beckwith decided the way to, even though it had an endowment from a man named William Appleton, which is where we get our name. Mr. Appleton was a publisher in New York, and he and Bishop Beckwith had been friends since before the Civil War, and their friendship survived the war and became even stronger. And when Mr. Beckwith, or Reverend Beckwith, was elected bishop, William Appleton said, well, I'll build you a church. You just tell me what city you want it built in, and I'll do that. And instead, Bishop Beckwith said, I want you to build me an orphanage and to give me some money for it so we can take care of these little girls. So since that time, Appleton has been serving children and families in Middle Georgia. We did a residential program of one sort or another until 1991. We moved from our original building on College Street to what is now the campus of St. Francis Episcopal Church in northern Macon. And then we moved to a group home model and an outdoor model. And then in 1991, they closed that down. But to give you an idea of how competent the women were who ran Appleton, they were known as deaconesses, and they were one of the first orders of deaconesses in the Episcopal Church. And in all of that time, from 1870 to 1991, only 4 little girls lost their lives while living at Appleton. And if you think about that in a time of typhoid and measles and flu and pneumonia and everything else, the fact that only 4 little girls died is really an amazing story. One of the first things I got to realize when I was hired 11 years ago was that we had a cemetery plot to take care of that included some of the little girls and 2 of the little girls who died, and then the deaconesses, and then one of the teachers. And so part of my responsibility is to take care of that cemetery and to recognize those deaconesses every year. When I was hired by the board, and Bishop Whitmore was pivotal in the formation of the new Appleton board, they said, well, you're hired. Now we need you to get a phone, we need you to find an office, and we need you to track down all the files of Appleton that have ever been involved. So my first year, I spent a lot of time finding things, but as a trained historian, it was a perfect job for me to look for those things. And we chose to go back to St. Paul's, and our office is now in that same parish house that was the Appleton Orphanage. So every day we spend time remembering where we came from and what our roots are. Since 1991, Appleton has served both boys and girls. It had integrated in the late 1960s, so now it is completely a mixed program. We serve children and families all over the Middle Georgia Convocation, from Eatonton to Milledgeville to Warner Robins to Perry to Fort Valley to Montezuma and Warner Robins and Macon. And so I have 10 churches that I work with on the Appleton board, and we go back and forth and we do all sorts of things now. We do after-school programs, we do backpack programs to feed children, we support food pantries, we support free little libraries, we support 3 campus ministries so that all of the colleges and universities that are in our region have campus ministries, and Appleton helps to support those. We also do other special projects from year to year when we're called upon to do that. But one of our major emphases is literacy. For us in Middle Georgia, literacy is a real challenge. It's a challenge all over the country, but it is particularly a challenge that became apparent in the last 10 years or so because we have been lagging behind the city of Atlanta or the great metropolitan area and all the schools that they have. We have something we now call Free to Read Summer. It's a title we came up with ourselves. We just finished our 9th summer program. We began in 2017 as a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School. We studied under Emmaus House and looked at what they were doing, and then we took off and did our own Freedom School for 3 years. And then when the pandemic hit, we realized that we couldn't meet the requirements of Children's Defense Fund to do an on-site delivery program, and surprisingly to them, neither could they. But we started in March when things shut down and turned my backyard and my dining room into a laboratory and a boardroom, and we completely redid a curriculum and launched our own program called Free to Read because we couldn't afford to buy the curriculum from Freedom School and lose that money if something happened. So we did our own work. And that particular summer, we delivered to 32 families 3 times a week to everybody's house. We cornered the market on 2-gallon Ziploc bags. We put books in bags with lesson plans and activities. Everybody got an art box to take home, and we would deliver that and food every every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then I had a small teaching staff that summer, and we would stop at everybody's house and sit in the driveway or on the front porch or in a housing project in the middle of the green area, and we would work with children and get their answers and help make them work together to move forward. And it was the only kind of education that was going on in Macon at that time because the school system completely shut down. And it stayed virtually closed for a year. Macon was not prepared with technology. My sister teaches in Cherokee County, and they have for years not had snow days anymore. You know, instead of having snow days, now you have something called asynchronous days where the kids just work at home, which is absolutely no fun. But it's taken all the joy out of having snow in Atlanta. But they had the technology to do that. Well, Bibb County didn't have that kind of technology, and so they had to go and buy all the tablets and buy all the Chromebooks and program and everything. It took months to get all that done. And so our children were literally out of school for an entire year. And even when they got the first Chromebooks and the tablets distributed, many of the children lived in areas where there was no internet. When you asked them, do you have internet? They'd say, yes, we have internet at our house. And what I would find out is what they had was internet on their mom's phone. And when their mother or father went to their frontline job, because they were not Zooming it in like most of the rest of us were doing at the time, there was no internet anywhere. So we really didn't have the opportunity even to Zoom with kids at that point. But what we have done is create a model where I went to the school system and said, we want to do this program. Who should we do it with? Where would you like to send us? And so they sent us to 3 schools that had among the lowest reading scores in the state of Georgia. And we took 1st through 3rd graders. And the first year when we did Freedom School, we took 50 kids. And I'll just be very frank with you, St. Paul's is not built for 50 kids. There are 9 bathrooms in the whole building. And I don't mean 9 rooms with bathrooms. I mean 9 toilets in the entire building. And so having 50 kids and all those adults is just too much. So we lowered the number of kids down to about 36 to 40 kids. And that's what we serve now. And we direct our curriculum to rising 1st through 3rd graders because the 3rd grade reading test, reading scores, are what determine whether you can transition from learning to read to reading to learn. If you can't read to learn, you can't do science and social studies and history and all those other things that you need to do, and even written math problems if you can't read well. And we found that our children just couldn't do that. And so we hired teachers. In the early years, we hired college students and grad students and trained them to deliver the curriculum. Now, as we have evolved, we have become very focused on using the Orton-Gillingham multisensory phonics program, which was developed years ago to deal specifically with dyslexia, but also is a very good program for catching kids up who are behind in their reading. It goes back to, we were all raised on phonics. You know, we didn't know how to do anything except by phonics. And then they did this silly other thing that I'm not an educator, so I don't even know what the title of it was, but it wasn't phonics. And so all the kids got away from that. And so now everyone is moving back towards phonics, and we have redesigned our curriculum to do that. Over the 9 years we have done our program, we have served more than 325 children, including, as I said, the 32 children we did on home delivery in 2020. This is a 6-week, full-day program, and it is offered totally free of charge to the families and children who take advantage of this. All of our programming is paid for by donations. We don't get it. This is my advertisement. We don't get a line item in the diocesan budget. We do get that Thanksgiving offering, and we are very grateful for the generosity of all of you. And we depend on the support of foundations and private donors to make this program possible. Many of our children are related to one another. They're siblings and cousins, and if we get one, we'll probably get 2 or 3 others who come in. And over the years, we have educated entire families of children, brothers and sisters, and everybody kind of looks forward to getting to come to our program. The great majority of our children are Black. We've had 6 Hispanic children and 1 white child in the entire 9 years. Because in Macon, the public school system is de facto Black and de facto poor. I want you to close your eyes for a minute and picture who has helped or is helping you raise your children or grandchildren, transport them to and from school and extracurricular activities, and provide safe and reliable childcare when you're at work or away from home. Most of you have jobs that are salaried rather than hourly, which allows you to visit your child's school for appointments and teacher meetings. You can volunteer. You can come and help serve lunch or read or do whatever you would like to do. Or you can take them to medical appointments. You have ready access to adequate health care and to medications and to adequate high-quality food. You have internet. You have untold electronic devices in your houses, and your utilities are not in danger of monthly disconnection. Your housing is safe, code compliant, and climate controlled. Your children do not share a bed with anyone. They don't sleep on a sofa or on a floor. Everybody in your family has daily access to showers, even if you have to make them take them, and to clean fresh clothes that have been laundered every day. And most of the problems your child faces can be solved with time, money, or social connections that we all have. I often say that poverty creates problems that are wide and deep. The children we serve live in a census tract with a 49% poverty rate. Although the state average for participation in Medicaid is 19.4%, Bibb County's overall rate is 27.1%. And for children, that rate is 52.6%. That many children in Macon and Bibb County depend on Medicaid for their health care. Every child in the Bibb County system is eligible for free breakfast and free lunch. Our parents are overwhelmed and under-equipped to deal with the challenges of raising children in a digital age that is dominated by screens and technology. Many of our families face food insecurity, a lack of stable housing, domestic or gun violence, and incarceration of family members. They need adequate and affordable child care, reliable transportation, and family support structures that are not fragile and uneven. Improving literacy for 1st through 3rd graders is only one of several life issues we confront and try to solve every day. But let's talk about our kids. We do 6 weeks of programming, and this summer, our first week was on Mental and Emotional Health Week. And these are the books that we used. We do a new book every day. Every one of our children gets to take home 28 books, brand new books, They smell nice. They don't have tape on the covers. They all have their book jackets on them. Every child gets to take them home, because one of the things we found is that many of our children live in homes where there aren't any books. So we create personal libraries for them every year. This is one of our children, Jalen. Jalen is going into the 3rd grade and is still working on his letter sounds. Now, how he got to going to the 3rd grade is a story that me and the superintendent are going to work out later. But anyway, we also, these are more pictures of Mental and Emotional Health Week. One of our favorite books to use through the years is a book called Enemy Pie, which is a book about finding out who your real friends are. And so we make pie every year. And they love making pudding pies, and I love getting to sample them. We do Physical Health Week so that we work on what they need to do to take care of one another. And Kinsey has been with us for 3 years. This has been her last summer. She got to come early because her brother was with us, and so she's gotten to come for 3 summers already, and she is really reading well now that she's been with us all these summers. Also for Physical Health Week, we learned all sorts of things about, we took them to learn boxing, we learned, we did dental health, we did medical health, we talked about hair care, we talked about all sorts of things. This is Melody. She's a rising 1st grader, and she is the second of 2 children in that family who is with us. Her big brother, Markel, has already been with us. And Melody wants to be a teacher when she grows up. We do African dance as one of our enrichment activities in the afternoon, and these are some photographs of that. Our overall program for this theme for this summer was Community Week. What is your role in the community? And we did, of course, we had 5 books, but one of them was Ava Tanner, the city planner. And we read all about Ava and how you plan a town and what you do. And our program director, Corley Path, her younger sister, Margaret, is one of the city planners for Macon. So Margaret, or Muffin as she is known, came and talked to all the kids about, why do you make choices? Where do you put things? If you were designing your own town, do you want the garbage dump next to the grocery store? Do you want the hospital next to the school? Where do you put things? And how do you decide who lives where? And so what we ended up doing was we designed our own town. We saved a ton of boxes and wrapped them up and let the kids decorate them, and then we laid out this giant town on 4 tables, and they picked where things went, and then we laid the streets in, and of course we have a river, because we do have a river in Macon, and people live on both sides of the river. And so we really enjoyed having everyone come. That's Margaret talking to the kids. And then this is Chad. Chad is a rising 2nd grader, and Chad is a wonderful, challenging child whose grandfather, he lives with parents who are mentally disabled. And he lives nearby his grandmother, and were it not for his grandmother, Chad would probably be in defects and foster care at this point. But I learned about Chad last year. Chad is a handful. He says exactly what he wants to say, and he has no filter. And we actually went to his home to pick him up last year because his parents don't drive and his grandfather worked and could not get him there. So we went, and he lived in a mobile home park. And so we would go every day to the mobile home park and pick him up. His mom would be standing out there with him, and he'd get in and he'd say, "Hey, Miss Julie, so you're driving the van today. So this is the Appleton van. We're going to go to school today. We're going to go to school. Where are we going to go next? Oh, yeah, we got to go to Southfield. We're going to go pick them up." I mean, that's how Chad kind of processes the world, is by comments and questions. And so you always have to be ready with Chad. To know what he's gonna ask and what you're gonna do, and so Chad got to move to a nicer trailer park this past year, across the street from his grandmother, so that his grandmother could keep an eye on him better and do a little bit more to support him, because she has admitted to me that she has told his parents that they could at any time have a visit from DFACS. And so they are always to keep his room clean and food in the refrigerator. No matter what else goes on in their lives, that's what they have to do. And if anything were to happen to his parents, I don't think his grandmother would be able to take him, because she has congestive heart failure. So we all kind of sit and wait and watch about what will happen with Chad. I'm not sure that I could answer questions 24 hours a day with him. I don't know that he ever sleeps, but he is a funny child and a gifted child, and he is learning slowly to read. And this summer, his grandparents felt so strongly that he needed to be part of this program. He lived beyond where our van transportation could get him without adding like 20 minutes to the pickup time. So his grandfather changed his work schedule at the Academy Distribution Center in Twiggs County, so that he only worked on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so that he could get Chad to school Monday through Thursday, and then they got someone else to pick him up. So that's the kind of sacrifice that some of these families are willing to make. We do a lot of trips and a lot of exploration to let our children see parts of the community that they don't always get to see. We are blessed in Middle Georgia to have lots of peach trees, and so one of the things we enjoy in the summer is homemade fresh peach ice cream. And so we go to Dickey Farms every year. The Dickeys have been around for 4 generations. I was in garden club with Miss Dickey, and so we take them out to Dickey Farms, let them eat. We go to the splash pad, which is within walking distance of St. Paul's. Everybody has a great time. We also have Library Week, because one of the things that we want to make sure is that every one of our children not only knows where the public library is, but gets to visit the public library. Many of them have never been until we take them to the library. And so all the books for that week are themed to talk about library things. And I love all of the books, but The Boy Raised by Librarians is just a hilarious book about a little boy who grows up going to the library all the time, and that he basically just hangs out with the library ladies all the time and ends up, as you might guess, being a librarian. We do civil rights and Black history. I don't have to tell you that our books look like our children. You can already tell that. This is Chloe. Chloe has just finished her 3rd year in the program. She is an adorable child, but has become a little more challenging because Chloe's growing up pretty fast. And she's pretty, and she's cute, and the boys like her, and she has older brothers, and she is learning things that I did not know when I was Chloe's age. This is Devontae. Devontae came to us last year through a partnership we have called RISE with the DA's office, where children who have been confronted by trauma or some interaction with the justice system have a special program. And so we take some of those children into our program. And Devontae's mother was shot to death by her boyfriend in a domestic violence incident in a car where his little brother was sitting at the time. So, you know, these children, they see so much. But one of the things we do every year is that on the very first day of class, everybody gets a person, and we do a book called The Colors of Us that's over here on the table that talks about everybody has a different color. You know, you're peach, I'm, let's see, what would I'm like magnolia. But, you know, there's cinnamon, and there's honey, and there's everybody has a different color. Nobody is a particular shade. And so everybody gets to make their own person. And so we put all the persons up on the wall, and this becomes kind of our class picture so that we have a record of who all the kids are. And they all get to pick out what they want to do. And sometimes they make it look like themselves, and sometimes they do kind of weird things. I had to learn who this was, but one child several years ago became a character called, is it Gert, Philip? That's the tree in the Guardian of the Galaxies. Groot. And I could not figure out why this child was like, he looked like a tree trunk. And I thought, okay. But that was one of his favorite characters, so he became Groot for that summer. We do science as an enrichment. My husband, Philip, who designs planetariums and science museums all over the country and all over the world, he teaches our science for us. He works cheap, and he has taught weather and astronomy and the summer of the solar eclipse. They all got to learn about the solar eclipse. He teaches geography. And this year we did geography because we were talking about where are we in the community? Where are we in the world? If you were to get lost, how would you get home? What are some different ways you can tell where you are? Some of them have to do with shadows. Some of them have to do with lichen on a tree. Some of them have to do with navigating by the stars. And we tie in, or Phil ties in, the story of the drinking gourd, following the drinking gourd to get north, to go, to leave the south if you were an enslaved person. We take them to other places, and this summer we took them to the Aviation Museum. We learned about flight, and they all love going, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to Warner Robins to the Aviation Museum, but it's got like these giant planes, and so that was, they love that. And we take advantage of all of our connections. This is Corley's dad. So we rope in my husband, we rope in Corley's dad. Our son Harry comes and reads books in Spanish to them. We do all sorts of things that we call in anybody we can who would like to help with us. We do Activism Week, which is to teach children the need for being part of the community. And how does that happen? And that book called A Good Night for Mr. Coleman is actually featured in the Cathedral store. And we've used this book nearly every year. It talks about a man who is unhoused who ends up finding a place to sleep and gets a house. And so every child, one of the things we do is we decorate bags, and we fill them up with supplies, hygiene supplies, and we take them all down to Daybreak, which is one of our day shelters. And so the lesson for our kids is there's always someone who is less fortunate than you are, who needs something else that you don't have. And so that lesson has just become a great book that we use every year. We have a full-time reading specialist in our program. She is a certified Orton Gillingham specialist. She teaches for us for the last 3 summers, and every child gets some individual time with her. She tests all our children, and evaluates them, puts them in reading levels. This is Anna E. here. And she works with every single child. This is Chad working with the letters. One of the few places where we actually use technology in our program is that she does some animations with the children to help them do their letter sounds, and the truck moves along the road based upon the letter of the sound. But for the most part, our program is what I would call unplugged. We do not use smart boards. We do not use computers. They don't get to use their phones. Everything we do is simple. It is, there are books, there are papers, there are pens. Everything is kitchen table ready so that when you go home, your parents can help you reinforce all of this. It doesn't matter whether you have internet at home. It doesn't matter whether you have a tablet at home. Everything is based on being able to read and do paperwork. We have a full-time family therapist on staff. We added this 3 years ago because we found that we just had so many children who had trauma and anxiety, particularly coming out of the pandemic, that we need someone. That's John Mark, who has the turtle on his shoulder. And he is embedded with the group so that he does not sit in his office and you go see him. He is with the kids from the time breakfast happens, and he can generally tell us by 9:30 in the morning who's going to have a bad day and who's not. Service by the numbers. We served 36 children this summer. We provided 1,008 books to children. We served more than 2,000 meals and more than 1,000 snacks. We did 138 van trips. This is a startling number. We had 7,056 plates, bowls, napkins, and spoons. Water, juice boxes, 321 rolls of toilet paper. Kids use a lot of toilet paper. We run through a lot of contractor trash bags, but we do recycle everything we can. We run through 56 gallons of milk, 23 rolls of painter's tape, and 8 gallons of liquid soap. At least they have clean hands. I have 3 classroom teachers, a floater teacher, 4 program assistants, 4 enrichment teachers, a reading specialist, a family therapist, and a host of volunteers who keep it going for us. This was the very first year that we lost a child. Our program began this summer with a funeral. Kahim Jeffrey had been with us last year. His little sister Alani had been with us. And they were both registered to come back this summer. And on the very last day of school, the kids got out of school at noon, and Kahim and some friends went to the lake, and he drowned. And so it has been a difficult summer for all of us because of that. And Alani came back. She had a really hard time adjusting, but we continue to work with that family, with their mom, to keep things going and to keep them connected. Obviously, I cannot talk to you all without making my plea for money. Takes a lot of money. It costs about $2,000 per child to do this program, and we appreciate all of your generous donations, and we give people credit who give us money. I do want to acknowledge both the St. Veronica's Guild here at the Cathedral and the Cathedral itself, which have given us very generous donations. I thank Julia for spearheading that. And this was taken near the end of the program, so it's not all 36 kids, but this is around our town. I'm just going to take about 5 minutes to talk to you about a few more numbers. How did we reach this literacy crisis? I mean, why is it that kids can't read? When we were rolling along, people were fine. You know, people got out of school, they could read, everything was fine. Numerous studies show that if you can't read by the end of the third grade, everything in your life is altered. There is a story, it's kind of an urban myth, but not really, that correction officers use the number of illiterate children at the end of the third grade to determine how many prison cells they're going to build to go forward. Children who cannot read proficiently by the end of the third grade are more likely to drop out of school, to commit crimes, or to become pregnant, and to enter the prison pipeline. In 2015, the state of Georgia followed many other states in pulling phonics and handwriting out of the requirements for curriculum, and since that time, reading scores have consistently fallen. And we are only now beginning to figure out that that was a big mistake. This is not simply a problem in Middle Georgia. It's a problem all over the country. It's a problem in Atlanta. It's a problem everywhere. It's particularly a problem where we are because, as I said earlier, the school system is de facto black and de facto poor. Bibb County has had a successful private school system since 1873 when the nuns started a convent school. Several other private schools emerged during integration and have continued to thrive since that time. Christian academies, charter schools, and homeschooling have added numerous choices for families who can afford options, and therefore in Macon, the gap between rich and poor, lower and upper class, and black and white continues to widen. Our city is literally divided between the haves and the have-nots. During the pandemic, I told you that schools closed for almost a whole year. Many households, even when they got the Chromebooks from school, we had to have school buses put around the county so that people would have hotspots to come and do their homework. More than 5 years since the pandemic, truancy remains a significant problem in Macon. Parents just don't think it's important enough for their kids to go to school. I am constantly amazed when I go to school and I'm sitting there dressed to, go visit with the principal or the reading specialist or something, and it's like 9:45 in the morning, and this mother will come in with 3 of her children, and she'll say, "Do I have to sign them in?" And I'm like, "Lady, of course you have to sign them in. It's 9:45. They're an hour and 15 minutes late. What is wrong with you? Where have you been? Get your kids here to school on time." They can't learn if you don't get them to school. It's kind of an amazing and frustrating thing. How do we identify students for this program? We work with principals and reading specialists and family engagement specialists and teachers. We hired our reading specialist. Our own program director has been trained now at an associate level in Orton Gillingham, which is highly effective. But just to give you an idea briefly on where we started this summer, one of the tests we administer to all the children is what's called a fluency test. You just have to read a section of words, and this was a section that was a standard spring quarter first grade selection. If you could read, you were supposed to be able to read this by April of your first grade year. Of 10 of the rising second graders present on a particular day for testing, 6 out of 10 of our students tested in the 4th percentile or below. One tested at 13%, one at 29%, and one at 86%. Not one of our children tested at 100%. Of the 11 rising third graders on that same day, 7 out of 11 tested below the 50th percentile. And remember, they're reading a first grade section, not something that as third graders they should have been able to read as a second grader. One of the challenges that our testing documented is that even with our program, which is free, and we go to the schools and pick them up, we still don't have kids come every day. We have to incentivize attendance. And by incentivizing attendance with a $50 bonus at the end of the program, if you have perfect attendance, we had 8 children who reached that goal. And we had an additional 5 who missed less than 3 days, so they each get $25. In addition to our daily curriculum and the individual work with our reading specialist, we send reading discussion points and activities home on Friday when we do our book drops so that every parent has something they can do with their children, some instruction on how to do it. All of those activities focus on beginning phonics and all of those things, and we send home something called a decodable book, which just has really simple words in it, and which concentrates on one particular vowel or consonant sound. And so they get reinforcement on that. We're also working on an expanded weekly program. We piloted a program this past spring that we're going to expand this fall called Free to Read Intensive, where we're going to take 10 kids in the 2nd grade, and we're going to bring them 2 days a week, and we have volunteer master teachers who work literally one-on-one with them for 2 hours after school on specific phonics, not homework, just on phonics. And the other thing that we've done is that we've been packaging something called Books in a Bag. And we take those extra copies of all of our curriculum books, which are over here, we put them in a bag with activities and a craft, and we give somebody everything they need to make up this craft. Scissors, glue, whatever it is you need to do it. And we give them out in the backpack program. We give them out at food pantries. And we give them out at shelters. There's a homeless shelter that takes families, and we take those in so that even children who are not in our program can be impacted by what we do. Our Hispanic children who came to us this year went underground before the 4th of July as the ICE raids increased. We haven't heard from them since. They don't reply to texts. They're just not here anymore. We have 2 siblings whose father is coming out of prison in August, and they have needed particular therapy because they're both happy that he's coming out and scared to death of what's going to happen. We have one child who desperately needed speech therapy who hasn't had any speech therapy. He talks like he has oatmeal in his mouth. So next summer, our goal is to add a speech therapist to what we have, just so that we have some sort of access. And one of my 2nd-year teachers this year admitted to me that she was trapped in a domestic violence relationship. She's 24 years old. We're not just dealing with 3rd graders, we're dealing with other age groups. She admitted she was trapped in a domestic violence relationship that eventually put us all at risk until we could get her out and get her to Atlanta to her family at the end of the program. And I'm happy to say she is gone now. She is with her family, and we hope we don't have to worry about this man. But anyway, he's not bothering her anymore. And the last thing I want to say is this. Julia said, I need to answer one question, and I have about 5 minutes to do this. What gives me hope? And I think it's, in some ways, obviously we wouldn't do this if we didn't have hope, because 9 summers in a row is a lot. And it gets, we work 16 hours a day, and it's a lot of money to raise, and it's a lot of work, and it's I won't lie to you, it's hard. It's disappointing, and it's kind of, some days it's demoralizing. But our kids want to return to our program. Our parents are learning to support their children and to become better advocates. The mayor has publicly recognized our program for its achievement. We have just been notified that we are able to trademark Free to Read so that we can perhaps franchise it out and make some money and help to reach some other kids. But mostly, it's the commitment of all of our people to what we do. I have a wonderful program director, Corley Peth, whom I have known since the 7th grade. I handpicked her for this job. My husband's getting up and walking away, but if it were not for my son and my husband, this would not happen on a daily basis. People like Julia help us find funds. They call and they encourage me. They do all sorts of things. We have 2 classroom teachers who have already committed to come back next year. We have both our reading specialist and our family therapist are signed up for next year already. We have 3 really dedicated high school program assistants who are coming back for their 3rd year. And they don't get paid that much. So for them to want to come back again is really wonderful. And we have one superior volunteer. Her name is Elizabeth Benjamin. She has volunteered as our summer morning bus chaperone every day for 9 years. And she's only missed 1 day in all of that time, all of those summers. She's been there every time. And now she's on our board, and she's one of our donors. She gets more than $50, yes. Good point. And one of the people who worked for me this summer, his name is Gabe Howard. He's a young black man. He's a rising sophomore at Georgia Tech. He's smart as a whip. And he called me to ask if he could have a job this summer because his mother is a principal in the school system and knows me. And she said, well, why don't you call Miss Julie and see what's going on. And so he called me and wanted to do this, and he signed up to do it. And he did everything from cooking pancakes in the morning to taking the garbage out to being my floater teacher and delivering curriculum. And he was a wonderful mentor to our children because they crave male leadership and companionship. And he's a club wrestler at Georgia Tech, so he's like really buff. And so he would literally walk around like a human jungle gym with kids hanging off of him from time to time. And he also really saved our bacon a couple of times because we had a couple of kids who were runners who wanted to get out. And you know, you have fire doors you can't lock. And so we're all flying down staircases, and Gabe just is standing at the bottom of the stairs and just scoops the kid up, you know, and legs flying, but he's got him, so everything's fine. And the neat thing about Gabe is that he knows where he came from, and he knows what a blessing it is to have an education. His father, Keith, was raised in Unionville, one of our neighborhoods, and Keith is now the vice provost at Mercer and has degrees from Georgia Tech and Duke. His mother has Gabe's mother has a PhD as well, and Gabe went to one of the finest private schools in the region and graduated from there, and so he wanted to give back. That's why he did it. And instead of doing something comfortable, he came every day and worked for us. I would hire him any day. So, and I will say that one of the funniest moments of the summer was when his parents came, and his dad's real big, his mother's real small. They're known as peanut butter and jelly. And they come, and Gabe was really proud when they first came to be read aloud guests. And they read that book called Hidden Figures about the black female mathematicians. And they acted part of it out. And, you know, it was so wonderful because by the end of the time, Gabe was sitting here kind of like this. So we knew he was human and not superhuman. But in any case, that is our adventure. And that is our story. And I want to thank you for letting me come and share it. And I hope that all of you will both support us and just pray for us because what we do is important work. And thank you so much for letting me come.